Okay. So this is for the May 2013 MEST 1 exam paper. So that's the AS Media exam paper, May 2013. Okie dokie. The texts I've chosen to use are Breaking Bad, Frankenweenie, and RoboCop, the 2014 version. So the question is, explore how representations are constructed in media products from your cross-media study. Support your answer with reference to a range of products from 3 media platforms, and this is worth 32 marks. Representations in the media constructed in a number of ways. All the case studies I intend to discuss are both similar and different in terms of how they construct representations. One of the key considerations when analysing any representation is the consideration of the genres, or the genre if it's just one, the particular media text in question participates in, and that's the term participates is of course a reference to Derrida's quote that media texts participate in one or more genres. This is because genre influences the construction of any given representation in the media. Genre theorist Hartley states that media texts are agents of ideological closure, and by this we can assume that media texts have clear interpretations in terms of how the audience reads, or decodes, if we're going to use media terminology, representations within any given media text, depending on how the media producer of said media text encodes their representations. Whether the audience reads the text as the producer intended is entirely dependent on the individual circumstances of any given individual in that audience. For instance, Breaking Bad actually evolves its representation of its main antagonist, Walter White. During the first few seasons, Walter is represented as a hapless yet intellectually gifted man, whom turns to producing and supplying illegal drugs in order to provide for his family after he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The audience is implicitly meant to sympathise with the representation of Walter in the first few seasons. If we look at a publicity ad from season 1, then we are invited to decode the representation in a set way. Walter is seen without trousers on, which immediately makes him look comical and foolish. However, he is also holding a gun and looking serious. This seemingly contradictory mix of generic signifiers, i.e. gun equals action, face equals drama, clothing codes equals comedy, actually sums up the multi-generic nature of the black comedy drama series rather well. Nonetheless, there is a distinct element of invitation to laugh at Walter too. In later series, the character of Walt goes from blackly humorous protagonist, i.e. hero, to, arguably, ruthless and cold antagonist, i.e. villain. If we analyse the trailer for season 5, we can see that the construction of the representation of Walter White has changed significantly since the first season. The reason is obvious: audience expectation and the deliberate subversion of it in order to maintain ratings. In retrospect, this strategy of evolving representation was extremely successful for the series. So if we compare publicity ads of season 1 and season 4, we can see both extremes of representation construction in terms of the character Walter White. In the ad for season 4, Walter looks malevolent, evil, and certainly not comical in any way, like he's represented in season 1. The website leans towards a more melancholic and sympathetic representation of Walter White. He is seen contemplatively looking at his hat, which he wore when he became Heisenberg, his ruthless alter ego that eventually consumes him. Here the emphasis is on drama and also audience identification with Walter. However, in the image above he is seen in low angle, which suggests power and strength, an image indicative of the height of his rise before his fall. Here binary opposition plays a part in both aspects of Walter White's personality as hero and villain. Overall, even though this is a TV drama, Breaking Bad borrows heavily from the gangster genre found within the film medium, and the representations reflect this. By contrast, Frankenweenie and Lego Movie are comedies, and therefore the representations are constructed accordingly. Both use anthropomorphism. This means giving animals and or objects human characteristics for comedic effect. In the case of Frankenweenie, the representations are constructed in a very deliberate way by director Tim Burton. Although he has made it part of his style, the somewhat gothic and stark black and white representations hark back to early cinema and German expressionist films such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Therefore, we can deduce that the representations in Frankenweenie are a hybrid of two genres, horror and comedy, as signified by the comic facial expressions featured. If we look at how Frankenweenie is represented in broadcast media via the trailer, the representations become more rounded and defined than can be possible through print media. This is a truism, however, that can be applied to any media product as it is represented on various media platforms. In the trailer, the representations are constructed in a manner that suggests several genres, amongst which are horror, through the music and imagery, drama, through the melancholic moments at the beginning, and primarily comedy, as signified by the up-tempo music and comedic, stereotypical representations, i.e. the screaming woman. The representations overall suggest comedy rather than horror because, although horror iconography is used, the overall effect of the representations on an audience suggests amusement rather than fright. Therefore, the construction of the representations uses two predominantly contrasting genres, but the comedy genre is more prominent. If we look at the website for Frankenweenie, it borrows much from the already established representations in both print and broadcast forms of itself. However, the images are anchored with text which suggests the film is a heartwarming tale, quote unquote, and therefore anchors the publicity images and inherent representations accordingly. RoboCop constructs its representations based on an original film from 1987, but is more modern. There is an overwhelming sense of the sci-fi genre, sci-fi standing for science fiction, and again the representations are constructed accordingly. In the poster, we can see clear representations of the sci-fi genre, such as the robot, the futuristic landscape, and the vehicle. The metallic shiny typography of the actual main written text also suggests sci-fi. There are, as the reader suggests, more than one genre at play here, and the action genre is clearly constructed through iconography too. For instance, the gun and body language. The website, again like the others, borrows heavily from established publicity ads on other media platforms. However, the website is very animated compared to the others, and this allows for the audience to be searched more effectively because it is more interactive and thus an audience is arguably more captivated by it. The trailer, like any trailer, accentuates the construction of representations because it, like the others, uses both sound and images to convey its representations. The use of sound is very techno and thus indicates the sci-fi genre. However, the construction of the representation of events suggests the action genre is also in play here. That's it. 35 marks out of 32, so a bit of an overkill there. Very, very meow.